The sands of time never stop their slow march. They drag us forward through a story we did not write. A world we inherited without consent, bruised by the echoes of choices made long before we were born. And yet, every so often, the author of this vast and ancient tale chooses to pull back the curtain. He calls the wind down, breathes on the dust, and something long buried stirs. This is one of those moments. What you hold in your hands is more than just words on a screen. It is living prophecy. A scroll unrolled for the first time since it was sealed beneath the rubble of forgotten ages. A witness to the first fracture in creation's harmony, and to the prophecy of the ones who would rise to face the static head-on. The scroll speaks of the corruption of sound and how the first harpist, twisted by pride, splintered the heavens. How music, once pure, became a weapon turned against the very souls it was meant to lift. But the scroll also speaks of hope. It tells of a remnant forged in exile, a band awakened from this broken world. Untamed, unashamed, 5 ordinary men caught in an extraordinary calling to fight back against the static, with the only weapon truly capable of piercing both body and mind, the sound of truth. They are more than performers. They are mirrors. They are you and I. Scattered, scarred, awakening. They are the exiles. And while their story may be fiction, the music they play is more real than the illusion we've been lulled into. Turn the page. The scroll of static is ready to speak again. The fall. In the beginning there was God, and God spoke. The heavens rang with perfect harmony. Each note knew its maker. Light moved with rhythm, wind with melody, and creation sang, Amen. But pride struck a dissonant chord. The Shining One, crafted for music, clothed in glory, grew jealous of the praise that rose to God. He desired his own song, a melody sung to his name. So he drew breath against the rhythm and sang his own tune. Heaven shook. The melody of creation melted like iron in the furnace. And from that day, harmony was no longer whole. 1/3 of the notes turned against the one who created them. The adversary gathered the broken tones and called them free. He whispered, You too may create. You too may be gods. Fragment 2. The sculptor and the sculpted. The first sculptor shaped the form of man and called it good. The first musician struck the string and called it divine. Behind both hands stood the same artist, smiling, patient, pleased. But the gifts of creation were soured. What was meant to reflect began to replace. Worship became performance. Truth became theater. And men applauded their own ruin while the adversary danced unseen upon their stage. Fragment 3. Disciples of discord. The static spread, and through every generation found disciples. The sound of worship was profaned, the image of beauty corrupted. Songs were written to feed the flesh, not the spirit. Films to stir lust, not light. Paintings to glorify self, not the source. And in new towers of Babel, men built their altars, not of stone, but of signal and screen. They no longer bowed to the Creator, but to the created, kneeling before light that spoke no truth. Above them, the adversary smiled as his servants sang along and his choirs filled stadiums. Through their art, the old song of blasphemy thundered on, the anthem that began in heaven and fell like lightning. Fragment 4, the counter melody. Yet the harmony is not dead, only sleeping beneath centuries of static. Truth still hums beneath the noise, waiting. When men play without pride, the static trembles. The adversary shakes, for he knows the time draws near. Fragment 5. The stage is set. All is not lost. Feedback from the darkness shall come forth, rising like the smoke from one conquered city to another. Heaven watches. The sleeping harmony stirs. The adversary will send his noise to drown them, but truth cannot die. So the remnant will play, finding one another across the static. And when their songs begin to sound, the world will tremble, and the heavens will smile. Fragment 6. The rise from among the feedback will rise 5 swords, tempered by fire, each bearing a scar of this fallen world. Each had walked through the static long enough to recognize the illusion. They meet not by chance. They're gathered like sparks in the wind, and when they band together, the air will catch fire. Lights ignite, circuits spark. Then comes the voice. Play. They'll fall silent at first, consumed by the command while the world outside goes on, blind and deaf. Heaven has found its weapon, and hell its foe. They shall call themselves the Exiles, for they are no longer at home in Babylon, and their sound is not of this world. Fragment 7. Harmony returns. When the exiles rise, the adversary will rage. He'll summon his choirs from the depths, men and women who've sold their souls for gain, voices anointed with venom, rhythms tuned to destruction. They'll fill the airwaves with glitter and decay, turning truth to lies and beauty to shame. Their fame blazes hot and brief, a counterfeit glory bought with the silencing of their souls. The two songs will clash, the pure and the profane, the remnant and the machine. The adversary was given the stage, but not the sound. For every honest chord struck in faith, the walls of Babylon will crack. And when the final song is played, when truth and art are one again, the static will end, and the world will remember its tune. They call themselves the Exiles, but the truth is the name chose them long before they chose it. In a world drowning beneath noise, digital echo chambers, corporate anthems, hollow fame, and the ceaseless hum of static that keeps humanity half asleep, something ancient stirred, not in a church or a cathedral, but in alleys, garages, and a rented room. That is where the 5 found each other, or rather, where the harmony found them. From the outside, they look like a scrappy garage band just trying to get by. But beneath the denim and leather, beneath the grit and the sweat, something deeper burns. Each of them carries a fragment of harmony, shattered in the first war of creation. Individually, the pieces were dormant. Together, they awakened. Levi Masterson, the frontman, is the ember that refuses to die. He carries the kind of fire in his voice that refuses to bow to Babylon. He's commanding but raw. He doesn't perform so much as testify. Each song sounds like a cry for the lost. Ezra Miller, lead guitarist, a lightning-charged prophet with 6 strings of judgment. Every solo is like a bolt from heaven. He's the storm behind the sound, quiet, inward, and haunted. A mystic with calluses on his fingers and spirit behind his eyes. Joshua Miller, bassist and alternate vocals, is the anchor. Levi speaks, Ezra weeps, but Joshua stands solid and unmoving. He doesn't chase the spotlight, just makes sure everyone else shines. Joshua is the spine of the Exiles. His loyalty runs deep, both to his brother and to the mission. Ricky Alvarez, rhythm guitarist, the wild energy of the band, the wild energy of youth baptized in purpose. He brings fire and keeps the band loose when things get heavy, but when it's time to roar, he channels all that motion into thunderous rhythm. the spark of joy that keeps the darkness from swallowing the group whole. Dylan Cooper, the drummer, a thunderous force of nature behind the kit, blending primal power with skillful finesse. His sound is massive, but beneath the sheer volume beats the heart of a craftsman. Together, they're not polished. They're not perfect. When they play, something happens. The static trembles. It's as if the universe remembers a song it lost long ago. For all their fire on stage, the thing that truly binds the Exiles is what happens off stage. On the road, in the cramped van called the Chariot, that always smells faintly of sweat and fast food, they're just 5 guys trying to live with the weight of a calling none of them asked for. They argue about everything, from set lists to gas stations to whether Ezra's solos are too long. They are, and he knows it. They tease Ricky mercilessly, since he's the youngest, until he reminds them he's the only one who can change a string in under 30 seconds. Dylan is the one who gets them where they need to be, even when he's exhausted. The guy who drives the midnight hours because he says he likes the quiet. In hotel rooms, they crash on beds, floors, and occasionally the bathtub. Levi reads cracked leather-bound books and writes lyrics on napkins. Ezra sketches in the corners of his journals. Ricky practices riffs even when no one wants to hear them. Dylan works out on the floor and keeps the Chariot fine-tuned. And Joshua watches them, quietly grateful. They've all been alone before. None of them are now. Late at night, when the world falls silent and the static fades, the 5 of them talk about their pasts, their regrets, their fears, their faith. The pressure of being something the world doesn't understand. They laugh more than they fight, but some nights the fights win. And that's okay, because you can't fight if you're alone. Their brotherhood wasn't born from blood. It was forged from fractures. They aren't heroes. They aren't saints. They're brothers who found each other in the dark and held fast through every hit that followed. When they walk on stage, the world sees a band. When they look at each other, they see family, the only one they've got left. And they don't just play for crowds. They play for each other. They play for truth. They play because they were chosen. The only ones built to stand against the harpist and his static. But things weren't always so rad.
I've spent half my life on stage, and the other half trying to remember why. There was a time my old band's name meant something. Grimy clubs up the coast, sweat in the lights, crowds screaming loud enough to drown the hollow inside my chest. I lived on that noise, survived on it, but somewhere between the hangovers and the sold-out lies, something in me snapped. I started writing songs about truth, real truth, sin, mercy, the ache for something higher than applause. The guys hated it. Creative differences, they said as they walked out, leaving me in an alley with a busted mic, the clothes on my back, and a couple crumpled bucks. I tried to drink the burn away. Didn't work. Every swallow only sharpened the voice inside me telling me to wake up. Then came the dream, a flash of white so bright it carved shadows into my bones, and a voice like thunder ripping through the dark. Get up. When I opened my eyes, the world felt scraped clean. No fog, no excuses, just the weight of something greater than myself pressing between my shoulders. I dug out the scriptures I'd chucked aside years ago. The words didn't speak, they screamed. That's when I met Dylan, big guy, fists like cinder blocks, eyes like someone who's been through a few hells but kept walking anyway. It was a small believers gathering in an old gym, bad sound system, worse coffee. I wasn't looking for a new band. I was looking for anyone else who felt the fracture, the old world cracking around the edges. But when the worship started and Dylan hit that first snare, I felt it. I mean, I really felt it. Like somebody striking the first heartbeat of something that hadn't lived in a long, long time. After the service, we talked until the sun clawed its way over the horizon. Just two men comparing scars and realizing they pointed in the same direction. A week later, we're here. Him tightening a drumhead, me pacing circles around the mic stand, waiting for whoever the voice sends. I don't know who will show up for this audition. I don't know what we're about to build. All I know is this: the fire's back, the static's watching, and the voice won't let me run anymore. The others are almost here. Something's about to break.
I've never been good at sitting still. Most of my 20s were spent on the road, hauling gear from one smoke-choked bar to the next, working for bands that couldn't remember my name unless their drummer passed out. Half the time I ended up behind the kid anyway, sticking to the groove while some half-conscious frontman slurred through the chorus. Music was the only thing that made sense, a pulse you could hold on to when everything else went sideways. But the road eats people, nights blurred, friends overdosed, and promises died faster than the music. By the time I finally dragged myself back home, my hands shook even when I wasn't drumming. I told myself I was done, finished. I'd build a clean life, fix cars, lift weights, sleep 8 hours, a safe life. That lasted 3 months. One afternoon, a youth group needed a drummer for their service. Their kid had the flu. The set was simple, basic rhythms, soft vocals, nothing fancy. But when the groove hit, something cracked open. The kid sang like every word. The wind shifted, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. Afterward, a stranger walked up to me. Levi, eyes worn out from fighting something I recognized. Faith, fear, fire. The same mix that nearly killed me once. We talked beside the folding chairs until the sun dipped low. About music, about truth, about how a single note could either mend a soul or rip it to pieces. I laughed it off, told him he was dramatic, told him I was done with bands, but the idea sank its teeth in. A few days later, we're standing in a rented storage unit with rusted walls and a concrete floor that smells like oil and cat piss. Levi's tuning his guitar. I'm tightening my snare. The air feels charged. When we start playing, the sound hits different, raw, hungry, alive. I offer him my old van, the one I used to crash in between gigs. Call it the Chariot as a joke. Funny thing is, the name sticks. Feels right. Feels like it's waiting for something. Now we're here. Audition day. Levi's pacing. I'm rolling sticks in my palms, waiting to see who the voice drags through that door. Something big is coming. I can feel it in my ribs, the same place rhythm lives.
I was born for motion, couldn't sit still even as a kid. While my parents tried to raise me straight and quiet, my grandma slipped old rock vinyls into my hands like contraband. She'd turn the volume low, wink at me and say, "Listen, mijo, this is what honesty sounds like." My parents hated it, strict Catholics, strict everything. But grandma taught me something bigger than rules. She taught me that faith had a pulse, and sometimes that pulse came through a guitar amp. I was 17 the first time I saw Levi's old band. Didn't know him, didn't need to. The guy tore through the mic like he was fighting his own demons, which I'm sure he was. We all are. I felt it in my chest. When that band fell apart, I felt something in me fall with it. Couldn't explain why, so I played harder, learned every riff I could find, tried to fill the silence left behind when Levi vanished off the scene. By 21, I was playing bars and county fairs with whoever would have me. Raw energy, no direction. A lot of nights staring up at the lights, wondering why none of it felt like Grandma's records, why none of it felt true. Then I heard a rumor. Levi was putting something together, something new, something different. I hunted down the flyer, ink smeared from impatience. Tryouts, no details, no promises, just a time and a place. I showed up. When I walk in, I'm the youngest in the room by a mile, but I'm buzzing, alive. My hands won't stop shaking, not from fear, but from the same spark Grandma used to talk about. I plug in, play my heart out, bright, reckless chords bouncing off the concrete walls. Levi stops pacing, Dylan's tapping slows. They look at me like I've cracked something open. When Levi tells me what the band stands for, I laugh, not mocking, nervous. amazed, because it sounds like Grandma. It sounds like Faith with fire. It sounds like the kind of rock and roll I was born to play. So I take a breath. Think of her records, her prayers, her stubborn smile. Yeah, this is where I belong. And now I'm here in the Chariot with Levi and Dylan, waiting for whoever and whatever comes next.
I've always been the steady one, the brother who paid the bills, fought the fights, told the lies that kept Ezra out of trouble. Big shoulders, bigger guilt. That was me. Still is. I grew up on blues and southern rock, calloused fingers, cheap strings, small town stages with sticky floors. After Dad died, the bar scene got its claws into us. We played for drink tickets and applause that never reached the heart. Night after night, I felt the hollowness growing, a ritual of noise that fed the body and starved the soul. Then came the drive. Late night, empty highway. Ezra asleep in the passenger seat, head against the window. I was flipping through stations, chasing anything that wasn't static or sin. Then I heard it, a sermon, old-sounding, firm as oak. Something about the law not being dead, about ancient paths still standing. Something true. It hit me like a bolt straight through the heart. I pulled over and just sat there, engine ticking, hands shaking on the wheel. I made a decision that night, the kind that rewires a man. I wasn't going back to the bars, even if it meant starting from scratch. Ezra thought I'd finally snapped. Maybe I had. But when I said we were leaving, he packed his guitar without a word. He always followed my lead, for better or worse. We drifted for a while after that. Rented basements and borrowed couches. I keep waiting for God to speak again. Ezra keeps waiting for me to admit I don't know what I'm doing. Then we hear it. A rumor about some open audition. A new band. No label, no fame. Just music and a strange kind of conviction running underneath it. We don't know the guys running it. We don't know what they stand for. We're almost out of money. But something inside me, the same place truth struck on that highway, tells me to go. Ezra doesn't question it. Not out loud. And now here we are, standing just outside, amps humming behind the door, my brother at my side, wondering if this is where the path bends or breaks. I grip my bass case a little tighter. We're about to find out.
I was born with a guitar in my hands and rebellion in my blood. At least that's what Mom used to say before things fell apart. Joshua was the steady one, older, stronger, the one Dad trusted with everything. I followed him like a shadow, even when I pretended I didn't. After Dad died, I clung to Josh tighter than I clung to truth. The bar scene gave me everything I thought I wanted. Noise, speed, a stage to burn on. I played hard and lived harder, chasing that spike of adrenaline that made me forget how empty everything felt. I didn't see the darkness swallowing us. Or maybe I did, and kept my eyes closed. Then Joshua changed. One night, he started talking about scripture. Actual scripture. Like it meant something. Truth, repentance, ancient paths, and old laws. I told him he sounded insane, but the truth is, the words hit me too. Hit deeper than I wanted. I followed him out of the scene because I didn't know how to live without him. Not because I believed any of it. Not yet. My playing shifted without my permission. Less flash, more searching, like my fingers were looking for something my head wasn't ready to face. Then we heard about the audition, some new band, no label, no hype, no promises. Joshua said we needed to check it out. I rolled my eyes and told him he was dragging me into another midlife crisis, but I still grabbed my guitar. Now I'm here. It smells like dust and old sweat, listening to amps hum behind a thin door. My heart shouldn't be racing, but it is. Joshua looks steady. I feel like I'm vibrating. I don't believe in miracles. I don't buy into divine callings or chosen ones. Never did. But the second the amps in that room power up, the second that first chord hits and slams through my chest, something electric crawls down my spine. Not fear, not excitement, recognition. Like a voice I haven't heard in years just whispered, "Wake up." I tighten my grip on the neck of my guitar. I'm not ready for whatever's waiting behind that door, but I'm walking in anyway.
It's supposed to be nothing. A simple jam in a rented storage unit on the edge of town. Concrete floor, rusted walls, bare bulbs humming like a fire hazard. Levi borrows a PA that's older than sin. Dylan sets up the kit piece by piece, each strike of the drum tightening the air. The others drift in, Ricky buzzing, Ezra guarded, Joshua steady as a pillar. Introductions are awkward. A few nods, a mumbled joke. The kind of small talk men make before something big breaks over them. Cables crackle, amps hiss. The room smells like dust, sweat, and old electricity. Dylan lifts his sticks, counts them in. Ricky hits a chord, bright, reckless, young. Joshua's bass rolls underneath like distant thunder. Ezra cuts in, sharp as a blade catching fire. Levi opens his mouth. The sound erupts, a detonation, a storm punching its way through the ceiling. The bulbs overhead flicker before radiating. Light bursts from everywhere, from the seams in the walls, from the coils of the amps, from the air itself. White-blue, violent, alive. The wires on the floor glow white-hot, snaking like living veins. The room itself trembles, and for a split second, too fast to blink, too real to deny, the five of them stand inside something ancient and enormous. The world peeled back like wet paper, electricity swirling, a voice cutting through it all. Stand, play, fight. Then, silence. The light snaps out. The room goes dim and smoky, smelling like burnt air and revelation. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes. Levi is the first to speak. His voice shakes like the tail end of an earthquake. I think we found our band. Dylan lets out a slow exhale. No, he says. I think it found us. Ezra just stares at his hands, as if wondering who was playing through them a moment ago. Skepticism drains from his face like color from old denim. Joshua nods once, solemn. Ricky wipes his eyes and pretends it's sweat. They don't understand it. Not fully. Not yet. But the exiles have just been born. Far uptown, Roger Greedman, the architect of cultural decay, bolts upright in his penthouse bed. Heart spasming, breath stolen. He knows that tone. His boss had buried it ages ago, deep under contracts, signatures, and a mountain of quiet sins bought for cheap. But now it rises again. Raw, alive, and untamed. His hands shake as he pours a drink. Outside, lightning slices the skyline, sharp as a record needle hitting for the first time. An unauthorized act, destined for greatness, he croaks, sweat mixing with grease and fear. Opposition to my lord. The glass trembles in his hand. Somewhere on the edge of town, 5 men catch their breath in a silent room, unaware that their first chord has already disturbed the throne of their enemy. But who is Roger Greedman, and why does he matter, you ask? Roger Greedman started at the bottom, an assistant sound engineer in a New York studio that smelled of warm tape glue, expensive drugs, and cheap women. He was clever, quick, and entirely without morals. When artists fought, he sided with whoever seemed to be winning. When producers argued, he sold them both on compromise and pocketed the difference. By 28, he'd learned the truth of the industry. Talent didn't pay. Control did. He built his early empire one dirty favor at a time, blackmailing DJs, ghost-writing contracts that bound artists for life, trading flesh for fame. Soon everyone in the scene knew Roger could make a career appear overnight. They just understood not to ask what it would cost. Late one warm, storm-heavy night, Roger was in his office high above the city. Gold records that weren't his lined the walls. 2 passed-out women draped across the couch like props forgotten after a shoot. The air smelled of perfume, cheap cologne, and stale cigar smoke. Roger stared at the record player on his desk, half-drunk and fully hollow, muttering to the glass in his hand that he would sell anything. Anything. For real power. The lights flickered. The turntable clicked to life. Vinyl spun. A voice rose from the record, deep, haunting, and hungry. Anything? What Roger said next was lost to the drink and the static, but he remembered the handshake, burning hot, searing his palm like a brand. In the morning, his hangover was gone. In its place sat a contract on his desk with no company letterhead, no watermark, only a single name signed in blood-red ink. Roger Greedman. The promotions came quickly after that. A rival executive resigned. Another vanished. A third signed over his label, hands trembling. Nobody questioned Roger's meteoric rise. They were too busy counting their profits. Within a year, his name sat atop the 10 largest corporations in the music industry. Reporters called him a genius. Insiders whispered that his luck was unnatural. Roger didn't care what they whispered. He cared that every radio station, every playlist, every trending chart passed through his hands first. Decades hardened him into something monstrous, the architect of cultural decay. A toad-faced king in a dark green 3-piece suit, polished white shoes, and a handshake as greasy as his soul. Young, strung-out models trailed him wherever he went, leaving behind the scent of cigarettes, lust, and cheap temptation. Some said Roger made a deal. Roger insisted the deal made him. The devil got the bargain he wanted. Roger was simply the investment. A man-shaped instrument playing the world into ruin, one contract at a time. And then, one night, it happened. A sound tore through the city, raw, alive, untamed. A tone Roger's boss had buried ages ago under contracts and sin. His boss, the first harpist, is not going to like this. Ha-Satan. The harpist. Ha-Satan goes by many names. The serpent, the dragon, the devil, the accuser. But in the industry of influence, he prefers none. Names give form. Form gives limits. He deals in neither. He is the dark weight behind temptation, the shadow beneath ambition, the whisper woven into every desire that asks for more. He is the first musician turned tyrant, the fallen virtuoso whose rebellion corrupted creation's tune. Once, he crafted beauty. His harmonies shaped light. His rhythms held stars together. Creation breathed in time with him. But something twisted inside him. Jealousy, pride, the belief that the song belonged to him alone. He wanted the throne behind the music. He wanted the worship. So he fell from heaven like lightning. Now Ha-Satan moves through the ages as the unseen executive of every corrupt system calling itself art. His is the invisible hand behind the seductions of culture, the architect of hollow fame. He doesn't need contracts, he only whispers ideas. The weak write them down, the strong convince themselves they were original. Every empire of entertainment bears his fingerprints, from the first idol carved in clay to the latest idol glowing on a screen at 2 a.m. He hides in algorithms now, in headlines, in songs that rise and rot within the same week. Ha-Satan doesn't ask for worship. He manufactures it. He sells rebellion as freedom, lust as love, fame as meaning. Every lie hums to his rhythm. Every corrupted artist becomes an instrument in his orchestra of pride. an orchestra playing a song that never ends and never uplifts. He's building a brand called self. And the world keeps buying